Hello, no mai, hoke mai. Welcome back to day one of the Financial Services Council 2020 conference, Generations. We hope you've had a relaxing break following our morning of insight, debate, challenge and inspiration. It was great to see people meeting and greeting the Tech Alley and Pitch Perfect participants at the 12:30 session sponsored by Minter Ellison Rudd Watts. And I heard great feedback from the Trustees Executives screening of The Final Countdown, Trusts Act 2019, and also Bravura's session on reshaping financial advice. Those great insights just keep coming. Thank you for joining us for the next hour, where the focus of our breakout session spans right across the sector. In the insurance breakout, we have a star-studded panel discussing how we must tackle the customer agenda. And in the Generations stream, our speakers address the incredibly important topic of well-being. In the second Laduka session of the day, guests Lou and Lucy discuss how the sector can change how to support customers affected by cancer. And over on the investment channel, the conversation is all about the behaviour of switching, so topical for 2020. Once again, in all sessions, there is the opportunity for Q&A, so ask away. Enjoy and mate wa.
Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone to this afternoon's session, breakout session. We're talking about wellness. A little bit different to the normal format. Obviously, we're in digital. But the pleasing thing for me is I know that none of you are racing off to get your hair and makeup done for the gala event tonight. So look, we'll push ahead. Tonight's session, for those that don't know me, my name's Sam Tremethick. I'm the Chief Distribution Officer at AIA New Zealand, and I'm coming live to you from my bedroom. One of the many perks of our new world, our new normal of digital. And part of what we'll talk about today is how we actually cope and how do we manage our wellness in these changed circumstances. Today's session is called The Roller Coaster of Life, Tactics for Wellbeing. I wanted to call it How Not to Murder Your Kids during lockdown, but they decided this was a more appropriate title. So we're going to cover everything today. And whilst wellness is becoming a bit of a buzzword for 2020, I'm really proud and really honoured actually to work for a company in AIA who has wellness just embedded in their DNA. We have the lofty ambition to make New Zealand the healthiest and most protected nation in the world. And so wellness is really core to what we're doing. So I'm really thrilled to be part of this panel and pleased to be involved. You know, I think we can all admit 2020 has been a bit of a shit, and you know, we wanted to discuss that today. We want to talk about the highs, the lows, but more importantly, the ways that we can actually manage our wellness and more importantly, that emotional roller coaster that we may be on. I'm joined by an absolutely amazing panel who I'll introduce shortly, but just a reminder, and just as was said in the introduction, rather than this be an hour of me asking questions, I'd love to get questions from the audience. So please feed your questions through using the app, and I'll get those on my phone, and I'll be able to ask members of the panel those questions directly. So really looking forward to a pretty interactive conversation. So let's start things off. Let me just introduce the panel to you. We have Angela Vale joining us. Angela is the CEO of Footprint, but more importantly, she's also a professional life coach. Welcome, Angela.
Hi, nice to be here.
We've got Taino Bendz. Taino is the founder of the Phone Free Day, and we'll talk about that in a bit more detail as well. Taino, welcome.
Thank you, Sam.
Jess Quinn. Jess is a champion for diversity and advocates for normalising differences. She's also a model, so she looks a lot better than me on the screen. But more importantly, she's also one of AIA Vitality Ambassadors. So, Jess, great to have you on board today.
Thanks, Sam.
And Christine Liggins. Christine's the director and co-founder of Debtfix. So, guys, welcome. Very diverse backgrounds, and so that hopefully means we'll have a great conversation. And really, today is all about having a conversation about something that's pretty important to all of us. So, one of the things that we like to do at AIA, which is a little bit weird, but we like to start meetings by just asking you how you are. And in 2 words, I'd love to hear how each of you are. But more importantly, I actually want to understand how you define wellness. What is wellness to you? Angela, I might start with you.
Well, how I am is a little bit concerned about the audio, so I've got to say that it's not a clear translation going on, so please excuse me if I haven't quite captured what you've asked, but this time, other than being concerned about the audio, I'm all good. And in terms of what well-being, I think you said, means to me, for me, it's more around less to do with actual happiness, which I think a lot of people confuse well-being with as happiness, and instead it's more around just having the confidence in knowing that I'm addressing all the areas of my life that I need to be addressing, and that I have the ability to adapt and meet any challenges that come towards me at any stage and within any area of my life.
Well, Angela, for someone who didn't hear the question, I think you answered it perfectly. So thank you for that. Taino, can I ask the same of you? How are you? And what does wellness mean for you?
So in 2 words, I'm refreshed and excited. To me, wellness, first of all, Angela, great point. It's not about happiness. You can have high well-being and still be unhappy or certain days. To me, and specialized in digital well-being, and especially around how we use our phones and the effects that has on us, it's around physical well-being and mental well-being. And under those, there's obviously a number of sub groups of well-being. And last point, I think, is about having a sustainable well-being. So we want a well-being that's not only there today or this week, but that we're physically and mentally well and can sustain that for a long period of time.
I think for the sake of the audience, you mentioned that you were refreshed. You might want to tell us why, just briefly. Why are you so refreshed? Yeah,
sure. So I've just come back from 4 days on a 4-day juice fast out in the Waitakere. 100% technology free, no phones, no computers. Lots of nature, and yeah, I was really, relaxed, but now back here and full of energy to talk with all of you.
It's a bit like a Band-Aid, right? You rip it off quick. You've gone from no technology to all of a sudden a Zoom presentation. So thank you for being accommodating and not being too relaxed for today's session. Jess, can I ask how you are and what's your definition of wellness?
Sure, probably not as refreshed as Taino. I would have liked to have had 4 days off social media and my phone, but that hasn't happened, but maybe I could learn something from him. I think I'm feeling very content and grateful. I'm a new auntie as of 2 days ago, so life is good, no complaints here. And well-being, wellness for me is, I think both Angela and Taino touched on it, it's this kind of all-encompassing picture of our lives and the journeys that we live, and I think the best way I've understood it is through the team at AIA Vitality, who speak about the 4 pillars, and they speak about think well, plan well, eat well, and move well. And I think that's just the best summary I've heard, in a sense that, we have all of these areas in our lives, and as long as we're doing what we can to address each of those areas, then I think we can work towards living, I guess, the most well life that we possibly can.
Well, congratulations, Auntie Jess. That's exciting news. 2 days, so that's fantastic. And Christine, please, I've left you to last, but what is your, how are you feeling, and what's your definition of wellness?
Oh, kia ora koutou. I'm feeling content and excited because there's a lot of changes afoot in my sector. And I think, yeah, like Jess said, the 4 pillars, I teach financial capability, and we teach Te Whare Tapewha, the Maori model, and Whanewhale, the Pacific Island model, which focuses on the 4 pillars, and it's more of a holistic view of wellness and making sure that every part of your life is functioning correctly in a good state. So making sure that your health is good, your finances are okay, maybe not great, but okay, and you've got social and whānau all interconnected as well. So it's again, like Jess said, it's the 4 pillars, the Te Whare Tape Whare and Whone Whale, good examples.
Yeah, thanks, Christine. And look, we might stay on you for the moment, and I think one of those bits around financial well-being or the plan well component is something that's left out of the well-being discussion sometimes. And we know that those people that have financial stress are often more likely to have mental health issues and issues at home. Now you work with people, helping them to manage their debt situation, and I'm just interested, given the recent dramas and challenges we've all faced during COVID-19, what have your team been experiencing? Have they seen an actual increase in calls? Have we seen that financial pressure start to trickle through the community?
It definitely has started, and we're expecting it to get more so as well. But a lot of new clientele, I think, are coming to the front because COVID hit everyone hard in one way or another, and a lot of people who were on good wages, managing their money, managing their debts, suddenly found their wages cut by 20% and now could not maintain everything, and didn't realise, because they'd always been okay, didn't realise what help there was out there, so actually sort of floundered a little bit. And I'm, wellness is very much, I feel, connected to money, because there's probably statistics somewhere, but these are my own. If your finances are okay, then a lot of other things fall into place. But as soon as cracks start appearing in your finances, that causes stress and strain on relationships. I've seen many people, couples, one person is bearing the burden of all the money stress, and not even sharing that with the other party, and it's all just bringing them down, and they get to the end of the tether, and if only they talk to each other, and discuss it. To a problem shared is a problem halved. That's what the old proverb says, and I really believe in let's talk more about it, and then we can share the issue and work through different solutions. So I definitely see finance as an issue towards mental well-being as well. Yeah,
that's really interesting. And look, the session today is tactics for well-being, and I think it'd be remiss of us to sort of gloss over this. And I'd be really interested in, what's your one tip for people to help manage their finances, help manage their debt load? How can they actually access this support?
Talk to someone. Talk to anyone. That's the first thing and the easiest thing. Even if it's just talking to your partner, then you can work through it together. But there's lots of budget services out there that offer free advice. Your creditors can offer advice. So I just urge people, don't bury it. Talk to people. Don't be embarrassed to just ask for help. Talk to people and find a solution with someone else.
Yeah, great. Just before we move off this, and this is probably more of a question for myself, we've moved into a COVID world. We're far more electronic in our transactions. We've expedited, in some respects, a move to a cashless society. How are people coping without, the tangible managing of cash in their pocket to the idea of just putting things on credit cards?
Oh, that's a big issue for me. It removes you one step further away from the transaction. People don't grasp how much they're spending. They just keep swiping the card. They swipe the card. I can ask you all, how many times have you swiped your card today, and how much have you spent? And most people won't have a clue, and they'll have swiped it like 10 times. Coffee, lunch, coffee again, something else. with removing cash from society, it just removes them one step further from the connection with how much they're spending. So it's and a lot of people who cannot do digital, that just makes it so much harder for them as well, going into further into a cashless society as well.
Yeah, so look, really interesting piece there. And Angela, I might turn to you now, which is around what can we as an industry be doing more and more to promote financial literacy? How can we actually encourage people to take control of their finances before we get into a problem? Where do you see industry playing that role?
Right. So look, I think there's a lot of good things that have been done already that we can be building on. I think we're seeing employers get involved in the financial literacy conversation and bringing in programs into the workplace. And I think we need to see, I think that's brilliant, and we need to see more of that. Often sort of specialises in certain sectors, and I'd like to see that really go through all sectors and at all levels, really start to get into more financial literacy programs. And that's also because in the workplace, if you're addressing financial literacy there, it's something that you're already doing. You're not trying to teach financial literacy on top of an already busy day where you're juggling kids and you're juggling a job and you've got the shopping and you've got everything else that you're trying to do in life. And if you can work with employers that are happy to help with these programs, I think that's fantastic. So I would certainly encourage more of that. But also, as financial service providers, and there's a lot of us specialising in different sectors, I think we could work together better, because I have seen that we do get customers, clients, members that fall between the gaps when it comes to some of the advice or the conversations around financial literacy or financial services. So just for example, you might have a customer go to the bank and they're talking about opening an account, and of course you're going to be talking about what sort of account and your goals and your interests, but the way in which you open an account impacts your estate, for example, and conversations. And so what can happen is that the one part of the conversation happens, but the next part doesn't, because the bank doesn't specialise necessarily in estates. And the same with KiwiSaver. That's more than a retirement conversation. That's an investment portfolio. All of that impacts your estate, and so that's multiple conversations. And I feel that customers, members, clients get lost in those gaps. So as providers, what we could do is be more transparent around the crossover areas, so customers, etc., know that there's a further conversation to be had, and they can seek conversations, because there are people falling through the gaps, which there I see there to be holes in sort of financial literacy programs. So that's definitely something that I would like to see us all coming together and doing more with.
A lot of what you've talked about there really centres on the empowerment of the individual and giving them the tools to be able to, or giving them the knowledge and the empowerment to actually take control of what they're doing. How much, and this might sort of reflect more on your coaching side of things, but how much does empowerment of an individual, how much of that does that have, how much does empowerment impact somebody's wellness?
Oh, it's huge. It is a huge part of it. Look, you can see it in all aspects of your life. When I was 15 and got my license, I was worried and scared of driving, but over time I've been out there driving the good, the bad, and the ugly, and my confidence is growing and impacts other areas of my life. Same with well-being. The more that we do for ourselves, rather than have this clear the way for us, the more we feel about ourselves. And as humans, we're really drawn to things that make us feel good and move away from things that feel so. So if we have a financial conversation, we're too scared of it, or whatever it might be, that makes us feel bad, so we move away from it. Is what we don't want to be doing, and you know, possibly that's hit a lot of people now at this particular time. So by, you know, putting in sort of small steps and having wins, creating wins creates, you know, good feelings. I can do this, and the more you build of that, not just financially, that builds into other areas of your life. It makes you more confident, and if you're more confident, you're going to interviews more confidently, you're making decisions, financial decisions more confidently. So well-being, and particularly as part of life coaching, is all of the ability to do what you need to be able to do. And you know, that's all the empowerment part of it, without getting too into the life coaching stuff for you.
Well, I'd love to get into the life coaching stuff a little bit, and I'd just like to think, or maybe you could share with us some top tips on how we can get a bit more empowerment in our life. Is there any sort of secret, you know, silver bullets that you can share with us, something that can actually change our perception on the empowerment that we may have or may perceive that we don't have?
Yeah, sure. Well, I would say one of the big things about how it goes hand in hand is adaptability. The more that we are able to adapt to situations and you know, and feel confident because we can adapt towards empowerment and confidence. So adaptability is really important. Done, like there's little exercises you can do. One that I've done with clients of mine through life coaching is really just say, you know, what is your goal, and really understand what the goal is, and then decide how much time you're going to commit to that goal. You know, a scale of 1 to 10, let's say it's an 8, and so you go, right, that's going to hit an 8, and then you think to yourself, right, that goal, me achieving that goal looks like what? What am I doing? What am I saying? What am I wearing? What does my day look like? What are the activities I'm doing? And then you take those activities and you make a plan. And you break it right down to bite sizes, because a lot of people are overwhelmed right now. And so to go for the big, hairy, audacious goal isn't, you know, can be a bit off-putting. So you break it right down to bite-size wins a day, and then you do those things. If it's just putting your sneakers on and going for a walk, that's a win. That's something towards what you would look like if you were achieving your goal. And you recognize it and you celebrate it, and then you do that all over again. So that's one of sort of the techniques that we use in coaching.
Yeah, Angela, thanks for that. And it sounds like the classic of how do you eat an elephant, isn't it? Just one bite at a time. But I think it's important that we do break down those goals into individual bite-sized pieces, and look, you know, some great advice there. Apologies for those that may be struggling with the audio. I know you were breaking in and out for me there a little bit, but hopefully we can come back and sort of talk in a bit more detail on that. Jess, I want to turn to you now before I turn to potentially some questions from the audience. So please make sure you're sending those through on the event app. Jess, you know, a lot of what you talk about, and one of the things that you know you're such a great advocate for is body positivity, and you know, I'd love to understand from your perspective how much of an impact does, you know, body positivity have on a person's well-being?
Yeah, I think a lot. I have spoken about this over, I mean, a large part of my life, but publicly for the past probably 4 years, and even my own conversation with it has adapted, because like all things, it's become a trend, and body positivity and to be as happy in your body has become this a buzz thing almost, and every company's getting on board with it, and it's so amazing. But something I've adapted in my terminology, because I believe language is so important in how we use our words, is more around body neutrality. And I think for a while there was this importance of loving your body and get up in the morning and tell your body that it's beautiful, which I think is really important stuff. But even then we're still focusing on what our body looks like, which is something that I don't truly believe. And I think the most important thing we can do is to just see our bodies as something that gets us through life, and it's just kind of the home we live in. And even if we're talking about it positively or negatively, we're focusing on our body. So I like to focus on what my body can do, and that's just what I learned in my life. After losing my leg to cancer, I really struggled with what my body looked like, because it was now so unusually different from everyone else that I knew. But all of a sudden I kind of learned all these different things about my body for what it can do. So that's what I celebrated instead. And I think that goes hugely with wellness. I mean, obviously it's something I speak a lot about, therefore it's the world that I'm kind of living in, and I hear a lot of feedback from the people within my community. But I know that body image, if you like, and mental health definitely goes hand in hand, especially for a lot of young women. And I think for a lot of us, we've grown up in a world where society has told us, or I guess made us think that we need to look a certain way, and they've projected this really narrow view of beauty. It's not very diverse, it's not very inclusive. And I know from personal experience, I grew up feeling like I did not fit into that narrow view of beauty at all, because I only had one leg and every model I saw on every billboard had two. So how could I be this kind of normality that was out there? But I realized that as I grew up, everyone else felt the same, and they had two legs, they just felt different in some kind of way. And that's something that I think is really normal, yet what's not normal is the image that's being projected to us. So we're living in between this weird space where all humans are different, yet we're being shown something that's perfect and none of us can live up to that. And I think, I must say, it's changing a lot. I think the space of media and fashion modeling and all of that kind of stuff, it's changing a lot, where it's a lot more diverse, and people are having these conversations in and around diversity and inclusivity, and they're breaking that down, which makes it all more acceptable. But there is definitely that that barrier still, I think, and I do think it's causing a lot of mental health issues, and social media obviously plays a massive part in that, particularly for young people. So yeah, it definitely goes in hand in hand. I don't have any answers, unfortunately. All I have is experience, but I think that's the best thing we can do, is just share all of our experiences, because that's how I learned that I'm not alone in my differences. And I think the more we can do that, the better. And yeah.
I know you mentioned you don't have any answers, and I
You're gonna make
appreciate that. But I suppose my question to you, if you were looking at the younger version of yourself, and now that you've obtained this wisdom and experience over time, what would you say to that person that's going through those struggles? What would you say to that person who doesn't think highly of themselves and doesn't think that they're worth it? What would be the one piece of advice that you could give them?
I think probably touching again on what I was talking about before, and knowing what your body is capable of is what's important. And if you're struggling with knowing that, I think finding a way to learn that, which is by doing something. You know, for me, I struggled with body image, and then I found the gym. I found a space where I could explore my capabilities, because after losing my leg, I felt really incapable. And all of a sudden I was day by day feeling strong, and I was feeling able, and that gave me the ability to be grateful in my body. So it's finding that thing, whether it's painting, it's playing music, it's something that you can, I guess, fall in love with, that isn't associated to your body and your worth being in just what you look like. I think that's something that really helps me a lot. And also just, you hear it all the time, but trying to beat the comparison. I think we live in a world, especially on social media, where we are just constantly comparing ourselves, even if it's not visually, even if we're not comparing our bodies, we're comparing the perfect life that person has, that I can say now doesn't exist, and the perfect face and the perfect body. And the more we're comparing, the more we're making it harder on ourselves. So I think A, stop comparing, but B, also know that every human has a complex life behind them that has ups just as much as you do. I think that's really important to remember.
Yeah, look, you've touched on a really interesting topic, which, you know, I do want to delve into a little bit more, which is social media. And look, I suppose it's a double-edged sword. A lot of the key messages that you get across, some of the key stories that you get across are obviously delivered in social media. So social media, no doubt, can do good. But we've also seen, and you've also referenced, that it can do harm. How do we manage that? And more importantly, how do we manage, you know, our children and also, you know, our loved ones, you know, dealing with that issue. How do you think we should manage social media going forward?
Yeah, you're definitely right. I've always been, or not always, but recently I'm in a job which involves social media, but I'm almost fighting social media in a way, or fighting the messages that it brings out. So it's quite a weird world. But you know, I fell into this world where I had this community and a platform that I could speak to, and I'm grateful for that. And I want to, the more I can kind of, I guess, use that message on this platform, I hope it can be used for good, because it can be. I think we've seen that through 2020, especially with everything that's gone on. You know, voices have been amplified that really needed to be amplified, and I think that's really incredible. So I guess to touch on what you're saying about how we can use it better, something that I do a lot is I do a mass unfollow all the time, because we're humans, we're constantly changing and growing and learning different things, and if we're constantly just surrounded by this small circle of influence that we're looking at all the time, then that's all we're going to know. So I'm really conscious to diversify my feed. I follow people and I follow accounts that I might not have otherwise I guess socialized with, or you know, people from around the world, from different cultures to me, and I think that's really important. And I think that's how we can all grow a little bit better, by taking on board a diverse group of people, and that's how we can kind of live in this inclusive world. And I think use social media for good, because then you're learning things. You're not just using social media to find out the best skincare or the best diet to have, you know, it's about education and all of those incredible things. So yeah, and I think, I mean, I'm not a parent, but I think if I was a parent, I would like to do that for my child, to make sure they're following a really broad range of people who are standing for something and standing up for something, opposed to just showing someone how to do their hair nicely. I think that's really important.
You may not be a parent, but you're an aunt from 2 days, and now you have serious responsibilities, and someone who I'm sure will look up to you, Jess. Taino, I want to jump over to you whilst we're talking about digital wellbeing, and I want to focus on you first and foremost, which is you were very much in the world and had quite a distinguished career in technology, and now you I won't say you're anti it, but you're definitely focused more on a sort of a digital detox. Tell me how you made that progression.
Yeah, before telling you that, Sam, I'll just point out that I think our call here today is the perfect example of technology in a good way and some of the bad things it brings. So we wouldn't have been able to do this without technology, without digital technology, without Zoom in this case. So that's fantastic. On the other hand, with audio issues, I don't know about you guys, I'm a bit stressed sitting here. Will my battery hold? Is my internet connection okay? Can they hear me? Stuff that I wouldn't worry at all about if this was, you know, in analog. I don't want to say in real life, because this is too, so I use the term analog. So, you know, it just captures both sides of it. In terms of my own progression, I've worked in IT for a long time. And I always say that I love technology, but we need to be smarter with how we use it. So my own progression comes from seeing actually the good that technology can do, but then also through my kids realizing the bad that in this case phones can do as well. And so phones is one part. You know, binging Netflix, sitting in front of a computer 10, 12 hours a day. There's a lot of parts to it, but my progression came quite organically or naturally, observing and then wanting to do something about it.
So let's talk a little bit more about your initiative, which is the Phone Free Day. Talk to us about what it is, but then more importantly, the why.
Yeah, absolutely. So what it is, and that's part of what I do. So that's 1 day a year, and it's basically to get awareness and raise attention for this cause, for this issue, because I really believe that we're underestimating. Just touch upon it. You know, the impact that social media is having on all of us, on young people, on old, on everyone. And our phone usage. So what it is a day, once a year, where we don't use our phones per day, or that day, or you use it very, very limited what you need to do. So I talk about purposeful, intentional usage of the phone. Quite a few people wanted to join and said, yeah, but I need it, you know, to make some calls, or if the kids need to reach me. And I say, that's totally fine. That's not what this is about. This is about the mindless scrolling, the destructive behavior. So that's the what. The why is because as I mentioned, I really believe that this is something, it's come in the past, you know, 10, 12 years. And now it's, you know, we're controlled. A lot of people, you know, feel controlled. More than half of people in a lot of surveys consider themselves addicted to the phone. We use it when we drive. New Zealand Transport Agency has this massive campaign now. Don't let driving distract you from the phone. I don't know if you guys have seen that. You know, it's everywhere. It's physical. You know, it's distractive at work. It's the mental well-being side. So apart from that, I created that day to shine a light on this. And then I also run workshops throughout the year for people and organizations to take control. And I made some notes here actually, because it's so similar to what Angela, Christine, and Jess talked about with empowerment and knowledge, because I think that covers all our areas of well-being. Talking to someone and having that knowledge and empowerment to take control, whether of your finances or your phone usage or your body image and perception.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, and probably touches really nicely with what Christine was saying earlier. And now, not only is your phone a phone, it's also quite often something that you use as a transactional tool. So something that you can actually use to spend money on. So I know personally, if I lose the phone or I misplace the phone, my anxiety levels really increase, and it's not healthy. It shouldn't be like that for an object. But anyway, we'll move on. Taino, give us some tips. How do we do digital wellbeing? How do we manage the constant pressures of people wanting to communicate to us, being online all the time, but how do we get to a point of having that digital wellbeing? What tips can you give us?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I just want to point out that you shouldn't feel bad about this, just like the other topics of the other fantastic speakers here. You shouldn't feel bad if you are doing some of the things we say, or you have, you know, bad financial or bad body image. This is about tactics. So that's the first thing I always say. I've had people in the workshops with 8 hours of phone time a day, and I say that's totally fine. Just think about, how do you want to use it? Do you want to reduce it? Do you not want to maybe use it for work? So on. So that's the first message. What we can do. So if we talk about phones, I would say start again. Talk to someone. Think about how does it make you feel. Sam, you said, you know, losing your phone would make you feel anxious. Okay, what can I do about that? The payment is one thing, not contact is one thing. So talk about it is one big thing. Starts with that awareness. A few concrete tactics. Put your phone in one place at home. This is the only device we have within arm's reach, the only thing we have within arm's reach 24/7. Next to the bed, in the toilet, in the kitchen, at work, on the bus, in the car. So have a place at home and at work, ideally, where you always put it. And it also means that you'll never go around looking for the phone, that classic one. So put it in a drawer, sound on if you know, to receive calls, and then you need to go there to check it. So we introduce a barrier. That's one thing, put in a place. Turn off notifications, or at least play around with them. Maybe you want notifications from the phone, obviously, WhatsApp and messages, let's say. But do you really need push notifications? They're called that for a reason, because they push into our lives from Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, you know, countless. And then, yeah, so that's just really simple stuff. Also, we're on Zoom here, which is great. A lot of people now working from home are on, you know, 8-10 Zoom calls per day. There's never a perfect connection. There isn't such a thing as talking to a person live or analog versus digital. So we need some breaks, and the latency messes up with our brains. So my advice there is to take breaks. It's easy to schedule call after call after call, because you just sit there. It's not like in the office that you move around. You can end one call, start the next. Don't do that. You know, have 45-minute calls instead of an hour. That's one great thing you can do. Another thing is have audio only and go out for a walk. I think we overestimate the value of video, and you know, have audio only, go out for a walk. Maybe the other person can do the same, and you win.
Yeah, I've got to admit, I'm a massive advocate for walking meetings. It is something that for me really works. There's no need to have one-on-ones in the same room or on video. I quite often take them as walking meetings, and I find that it actually helps clear my head. Angela, I want to come back to you, and you know, given you know sort of the career advice and you know counselling that you provide, what sort of advice do you give to people that are struggling with that transition from work and then working from home? I know personally that line between home life and work life becomes very, very blurred, and I find myself working longer hours. I'm not more efficient, but just longer hours because I don't have that break. What sort of advice do you provide to people there, Angela?
Well, we get very much into what is it you want to achieve, much like the others. It's around working with somebody to say what's out of balance. What would you like to be able to do? Do you want to spend 50% of your time, 40% of your time, whatever it is? So the main thing is to actually take a pause and go, what is it I want? Rather than just being on default and responding to everything that comes their way. And then once you identify what it is you want, then you start breaking that down and going, okay, so what does that mean? What am I prepared to put aside, wait, what's got to stay? And it's actually just being really specific because we tend to run on default. We just get, you know, human beings, things come at us, so we just continue and forget that actually we have a say in how we manage things. And once you put a plan in place and you put a commitment to it, it becomes more conscious, and you start working more consciously rather than from your subconscious. And when you do that, you'll start to, it doesn't mean everything goes perfectly all the time, certainly not, but it's better to have a plan and know what you're looking to achieve, and then you take your steps towards it, and that as soon as you start feeling that happen, you feel empowered, and all those other things that we talked about come into place. So really it is about getting out of autopilot and getting, you know, some control back, I guess.
Christine, I'll probably come to you now, which is, you know, and I should say that we're not phone bashing by any means, but obviously it's a key component of our life going forward. And, you know, I'd be interested in your views and what you're seeing from a debt management perspective. You know, it is so easy now to charge things on a subscription basis and use our phone as a transactional tool. What are you seeing, and how are you helping people to manage their phones?
Oh gosh, I just want to touch on first before I answer that question, and you might have to remind me of it. But when you were talking to Angela and Taino earlier about working from home under COVID, that put myself under quite a lot of pressure, because my staff all relished working from home. They thought it was great, but my problem was that I knew they wouldn't switch off. And it's not that I didn't trust them to switch off, but they're so passionate about helping the clients that, oh, I'll just sneak on and see if someone's emailed back, and then I can help them, you know, further. And because they're all in crisis, they're our clients, so they just want to touch base with them just to make sure they're okay. And I'm absolutely guilty of that all weekend. And I hear what Taino says, and I'm really going to try and cut my hours down on the weekend. Clients with phones, it's really difficult because even if they're on a benefit, they have to connect with the phone. They have to log in to Working Income to see what the benefit is, to tell them of any changes. And they have to be constantly connected these days with technology to actually survive in a financial world as well. You know, if they want a bank statement, they either have to pay for it to be printed and delivered, or they get it free online. So they have to get online. And now they're online, and I hear what you're all saying. Scroll through Facebook. What's wrong with that diet, Jess? I thought that one looked all right. And then click and buy and click and buy, and it just opens a whole can of worms, especially when you can buy a new pair of shoes and, oh look, they do Afterpay. Let's just click, and it's 3 clicks and I've now got Afterpay and 3 pairs of shoes. That's awesome. It's just yeah, and Taino was absolutely right. There's so many advantages of technology, but so many disadvantages as well. And I don't think we are educated enough to always make the right choice. And we just feel that we do have to be, I think it's FOMO, fear of missing out, isn't it? I need to scroll through Facebook to see what's going on with all the false lives out there. And all the beautiful food that people cook, it's just a picture photoshopped, and the bodies and everything. And yeah, it's kind of a fear of missing out. And yeah, it's like, oh gosh, I wish we'd banned Facebook sometimes. And maybe your phone free day, Taino, should be actually, let's take it up with Mark Zuckerberg and switch off Facebook for a day. See if we can all stay alive.
I hope we could. Concerning if we couldn't. Guys, I'm mindful of time, and it's been a fascinating discussion. What I'd really like to know, if you could just do one thing, to improve your wellness, and we know that wellness is defined individually, and it can be across multiple dimensions. But Jess, I might put it to you. What would be the one thing that your absolute thing that you must do for your perfect or for your wellness?
First thing that springs to mind is probably slow down. It's something I've been trying to work on for a while, and I think just slowing down. I'm definitely a rushing woman syndrome kind of person. I'm just go, 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 go. If I've got nothing on all day, you won't know it. I will have filled it as if I have something on every second. So I think just being more present in the moment and slowing down, I think that encompasses so many things. It will, when you're more present and you're in the moment, you're more, you're noticing more, you're eating the right things because you're thinking what your body actually wants, opposed to just rushing to the pantry. You're intentionally moving your body, opposed to just doing a quick workout that's probably going to injure you because you're not being intentional about it. And you're breathing. I don't breathe very often, I've learned. So I just think slowing down kind of encompasses so many things that I think can improve our well-being.
Yes, a lesson we can all learn. Just before we move on, I have had a question from the audience, which is the role of influencers, and are they part of the problem, and how do we manage these professional influencers? How do we actually take control back? And I know you've done some work previously around making sure that there was commentary on photos to actually say when they've been touched up. Is there anything that we can do as a society to push for regulating influencers in some respect?
Yeah, again, a double-edged sword. I'm often referred to as an influencer, which I really don't enjoy personally, but because there's a whole lot of influencers in the world, and I think we have a very narrow view of what that looks like, and that can be quite a toxic environment for a lot of people. I think, and I do talk about this a lot, I think a lot of people ask that, what can we do? How can we bring down influencers, or how can we stop this kind of world, or how can we stop this constant selling of products, or of I guess this perfect world that people are not living in. And I think we have to flip it the other way, because I think any industry, there's always going to be one bad company or one bad thing or one bad person. And not that influencers are bad, but there's always that thing that people are going to be against. And I think we need to flip it onto ourselves and realize that there's an unfollow button on social media for a reason. We choose who we follow and who we let into our lives. And I think take the power into your own hands and use that. If someone's making you feel bad, if you don't agree with what someone's saying, they could have 1 follower, they could have 1 million followers. It's in your power to be able to take that away from your eyes and from being able to influence your world, I guess. So that's the one tip that I would have, because it's I believe that we need to be in control of our own life. So I think that, but then, yeah, I think there is things that we can do if something's not sitting right. You know, the ASA just got the advertising authority just got the rules in place. I don't think it's a law. I think they're more rules where, you know, people have to say if something's been sponsored so the ads can't go unidentified. And I think that happened because people were calling out and saying, hey, I don't like this. And I hope the same for my mission of getting less Photoshopped bodies out into the world. I want, you know, the more we speak up about the things that we don't agree with, the more people are going to get on board, and people in power will make them happen. So 1, unfollow. 2, speak up if something isn't going well for you, and yeah, we can get together and make some change.
You and I differ greatly, Jess. I have aspirations to be considered an influencer. It's almost a career goal of mine, but I'm a long way from it. Taino, I might come to you. What's the one thing that you would do if you could only do one thing to support your wellness?
Yeah, before answering that, again, avoiding it like some other people have been, I think Jess made a super good point. It's in our hands, you know, about unfollowing. If someone's, you know, influencing in a way we don't support, it's in our hands to unfollow them. And also, I think if we increase the ratio of, you know, empowerment on social media, Jess, I think you shouldn't be afraid of being an influencer, because you are, you know, about positive, about empowerment and so on, which is totally fine. For me, Sam, I think, and this might sound sort of selfish coming off a 4-day retreat, but I need to take more time to look after my own well-being. You know, dropping off the kids, now my body might be a bit whack. Technology making me stressful. You know, I drop off the kids in the morning, I rush off to work, I do this, I speak, I meet people. I'm really passionate about connecting with people on a sort of personal level, so I use social media to do that, but I realize I do live as I preach, but I need to slow down a bit and be more selective about where I put my energy.
Yeah, thanks, Taino. And look, I think, you know, a really interesting point is an interesting use of language around being selfish. And I don't think it is about being selfish. It's actually just committing time to yourself, isn't it? And that's something that we all have to do if we're going to be part of this journey. So 2 really good tips around slowing down and probably, you know, committing some time to yourself. Christine, I might come to you. What's the one thing you'd do?
Well, I listened to Taino earlier, and I'm going to take his advice. He's obviously seen my calendar, and I'm not going to put as many appointments in a day as I've been doing. It's how many meetings can I hold in a day, and then I feel I'm being productive. But I hear you, Taino. I'm going to cut them down. So that's my tip. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
That's awesome.
Well, Christine, we positioned this session as a panel discussion. It was actually an intervention for you. This was really the purpose of today.
That's right.
So, Taino,
I think
well
so.
done. You provided some great advice there. Angela, to you, what's the one thing that you'd do that would make if you could only do one thing, what would be the biggest thing that would make a difference to your wellness?
One thing a day that inspires me, just to, you know, imagine each day, like do that one extra thing that I'm really proud of and really inspires me. That's mine.
Can you give us a quick insight of what is a one thing that might inspire you?
Well, it could change on a day-to-day basis, but look, for today, for example, I usually do my workouts in the morning. I didn't today, didn't have time, and I would never do my workout in the afternoon. But after this call, I'm going to go do my run. And normally that's my shutdown period, and I won't do that today. I'll push further and go harder, and I'll do my run, and I'll be really proud of myself when I do that. And tomorrow it could be something else.
Yeah, great stuff. And look, that's fantastic. And look, we haven't spoken about physical wellness really at all. And obviously that plays a huge part, and a lot of the research that we've done has highlighted the impact of being physically active and being just moving a little bit more the impact that has on mental wellness. Guys, I'll leave, with sort of 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes to go. I suppose, it would be wrong of me not to leave you with an opportunity to sort of provide one message about what you're doing and why you think it's going to make a difference to society. So, Angela, can I start with you on that one?
Mine would be, if I heard that correctly, would be just develop adaptability. I think it's really important in this particular period of our lives, and it's only going to get more important. So going down that route, I think, is a good heads up and something worthwhile doing.
Christine, for you?
We're working closely with the government and creditors, and we're trying to get the word out that it's okay to talk about debt. Don't be embarrassed. Let's get it out in the open, and let's get the corridors going, and then we can all work together to solve them.
Taino, for you, I think we should make phone-free day more than 1 day a year. But what is it that you want to do?
Yes, and that's actually in the books, possibly doing it more often. For me, I just want to acknowledge, or I'd like organizations and individuals to acknowledge the effect that digital technology is having on us and our well-being. And for me, as I said, running workshops, helping with phone policies for organizations and people and families. So, anyone watching this, please get in touch, and I'll be happy to talk about how I help people. It's really a passion and mission of mine. But in a broader picture, just acknowledging and raising awareness of that. And if you've seen The Social Dilemma a few weeks ago, that's, raising that awareness as well.
Yeah, it's quite confronting, isn't it? And I'd encourage anyone that hasn't seen that to watch it, because it does question some of the things that we believe and some of the things that we do. Jess, over to you. What's the one thing that you want to sort of impart on the people?
I mean, I just want to continue with my mission of normalizing different. I grew up in a unique body, and I thought I was in a minority of different. I thought I was one of the few people on the planet that was different. And as I got older, I realized that the one thing we all have in common is that we are different. So I want to keep normalizing that, because I think that will help people's mental health and help with, these situations of adversity that we're all going to face throughout our life. If we know that we're all different and, we can all be understanding of that, I think we'll live in a much better world. So that's forever my mission until I can't fight it anymore, really.
Guys, and Jess, thank you for that. And that's a great way to finish. I think there's some key messages that have really come through. And some of the things that I've sort of taken away is that need to slow down. We're all guilty of it. That we rush around and think that we're the most important people in the world, where things actually continue on quite nicely without us. So that ability to slow down, take a breath, and actually reflect on some of the things that we do. The other point that came out, and it's been used a few times, is that need or that desire to talk about it. It's okay to talk about it when we're stressed. It's okay to talk about it when we've got challenges in our life. And I think that's one of the key things. And one of the things, as to whether it's friends or whether it's government agencies or whether it's support groups, companies, whatever it might be. I know our AIA has the use of the employee assistance program, like many companies do, but that ability to identify that talking about it is okay. Breaking down the problem, I really love that. Setting yourself a lofty goal may be overly ambitious at times, but if you break it down into simple steps, then quite often it can be more achievable. And that's both, an ambitious goal, but also dealing with some of, financial challenges or something that we might have. And I really love just, your point is that, just like everyone else, you're unique. And that acknowledgement that we're all different, which is what makes us all the same, is a pretty good start. That we don't have to compare ourselves to other people, that we should just be happy in who we are, and more importantly, what we're doing. So, Angela, Taino, Jess, Christine, thank you very much. Thank you sincerely for that time. I've learned a lot. I've taken down some notes, which is a great thing. I hope some of the audience have. I really appreciate your time, and I really what I love about this conversation is that we're coming from all different backgrounds and all different angles, but ultimately it's about the personal wellness of individuals and how they can take control of what's been a pretty average year. So guys, thank you for your feedback today.
Kia ora.
Thank you.
Fantastic. It is such a pleasure to have such leading discussions from across the sector on our platforms. Thank you to all of this afternoon's and indeed all of today's speakers. Great content drives great conferences, and superb content is something we're not short of here. All of today's sessions have been recorded and are available to all registrants to watch again in your own time. If you haven't yet had a chance to look at the sponsor and Tech Alley areas, I would thoroughly recommend it. There are all sorts of downloadable resources and contacts available to you as the audience. We hope you've had a wonderful day so far and that you're able to relax this afternoon, ready for another day packed to the gunnels with great content tomorrow. For those of you who have tickets for tomorrow, we will see you back here bright and early at 8 a.m. for the breakfast breakout sessions. Bring your Weet-Bix or your Vogels with avocado. The dress code includes pyjamas. That's one of the benefits of a digital event. Once again, if you have any questions about the event, please email events@fsc.org.nz and the events team will be in touch. I'm Vanya Thomas from Guardian Trust and I've been your MC for day one. It has been a pleasure being with you all today, whether you're in your office, in your home study or on the school run. Thank you to the team here in the studio and have a very pleasant evening. E no hora.